I tried out for the Victoria's Secret fashion show. I wanted to try out and I wanted to do this, so I went and I auditioned for it, and when I booked it, I was shocked.
She's made a huge splash in the fashion industry.
Victoria's Secret angel Taylor Hill.
Let's talk about the grief of losing a friend.
I'm looking at him and I'm asking him, like, if you need to go, like, please let me know. Like, I will let you go.
Hey everyone, I've got some huge news to share with you. In the last 90 days, 79.4% of our audience came from viewers and listeners that are not subscribed to this channel. There's research that shows that if you want to create a habit, make it easy to access. By hitting the subscribe button, you're creating a habit of learning how to be happier, healthier, and more healed. This would also mean the absolute world to me and help us make better, bigger, brighter content for you and the world. Subscribe right now.
The #1 health and wellness podcast.
Jay Shetty.
Jay Shetty.
The one, the only Jay Shetty.
What would you say is your earliest childhood memory that you feel has defined who you are today?
My first memory ever is I think it was my 3rd birthday party. So I was born in Chicago and I lived there until I was probably about 5 years old, and then I moved to Colorado, and that's like my home and where I am from in my head, because I don't really remember Chicago. But I remember being in our backyard there, and we had this little red house, and it was my birthday party, and all of the kids in our neighborhood were over, and we were having a party, and I had a pink Barbie cake, and I specifically remember the candle was Barbie. Like, it was a very intricate candle, and everyone's singing happy birthday, and then I'm supposed to blow out the candles, and then my friend, he blew the candles out before I could, and I got so upset, and I was very emotional, and I was like kind of crying, and I got so mad, and I was like, why would you do that? Oh my gosh, like, I was supposed to do that. And then my mom's like, it's okay, we can, we'll light the candle again, and then you can blow out the candle. And I was like, well, it's not the same. He took my wish. Like, I was heartbroken. And I think if that says anything about me, it's just that I'm very emotional. And I just, sometimes when people do things that aren't so nice to others, I sometimes don't understand. I'm like, why? Why did you do that? So that's one of my very first memories. But I think something that kind of helped, like, maybe define who I was from a child, I would say, is sports. I was a gymnast from when I was 9. I did ballet from when I was 6, and then I grew up snowboarding. And I think for me, being athletic and being active really helped shape who I am, because I've been modeling for 14 years. I was scouted at 14, and I love my job and I love working, and I have such a passion and a drive for it. And I think I have such a drive because of being in sports my whole life, and honestly being a gymnast, not a very good gymnast, but I loved it. I had so much fun doing it, even though I wasn't. My mom was like, this girl, she's not going to the Olympics. That was understood, but she encouraged me to do it anyway, and she knew I had fun, and it gives you sort of this sense of structure, and healthy competition is always a little bit nice. And I love the sport of gymnastics because it's very demanding in a sense, and it challenges you to always be better. The sort of motto of gymnastics, or what my perception of it was from doing, is strive to be better, strive for perfection, perfect 10, all that stuff. You'll never get there. Well, some people do, but I was never gonna be a perfect 10, let's be honest. But having the drive to, like, always do better, always perfect this trick, perfect that flip, do this, do that, and push myself. It was and push myself in something I enjoyed doing. Kind of gave me I have a similar headspace in my modeling career, just because I love doing it, and I love my job, and I just want to keep doing it, So I think that's 2 things about me.
Yeah, those are great answers. Do you still know the person who blew that candle out?
I do, yes. I do. I haven't seen him in forever, but I did go back home to where I was born a couple times, like throughout my childhood. My godparents and my mom and dad's best friends, they still lived there, and their children were our childhood best friends. So we would spend summers together and everything. And some summers I would go back to Chicago and like see them and all of that, and see the kids in the neighborhood. So I did see this boy multiple times, and he was a really good friend. It was very innocent, we were only maybe 3 years old, so he didn't know what he was doing either, but I just didn't understand. I was like,
does he realize now what a big moment?
He probably doesn't even remember that he did that, but I do.
Yeah.
And he probably doesn't even know I'm talking about him, but I'm not going to say his name, but we know.
No. Well, how was that like when the Barbie movie came out? Was that like, has Barbie always remained an idol in your life since that day, or not really?
I loved Barbie. I have 2 sisters, and I actually have 3 siblings. So I have an older sister, a younger sister, and a younger brother. And we're all very close in age. We're all about, roughly 1 year apart from each other. So growing up, we loved playing dress up. We loved Barbie. We loved toys. We loved, Polly Pockets. We loved My Little Pet Shop. We had all of those things. We loved all of that. And I loved the Barbie movie. I thought it was great, and I thought it was really profound, and it touched on a lot of things in a really interesting and kind of a lighthearted way. So yeah, I had a childhood connection to Barbie for sure. So I loved her. And then when the candle was blown out, I was like, how could you do that to me?
I can see it still affects you till this day.
Still sad,
What was it like? You said, of course, you got scouted at 14. What was it like? You have siblings. I'm assuming they weren't all working at 14.
No.
And so when you start working at 14, which is a very young age, first of all, what does working at 14 as a model look like? Like, what are the hours? What are the commitments? Do you drop out of school? And then how do your siblings react to it? How do your parents react to it? Like, what does it look like? Because I feel, they're not working, they're not getting paid, they're not traveling.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, so my mom was a hairdresser, so she worked in a salon and cut hair. And, after having all 4 of us, she obviously was like, I can't stand on my feet all day and take care of 4 young children under the age of 5, so we're not going to do that anymore. And she became a stay-at-home mother, which I'm so grateful to have had my mom. And that's a job. It's work. And she was amazing at it. And, when I was scouted and I started traveling and, working as a model, it meant that, I went to New York, I signed with IMG when I was 14. And from there I went everywhere. I traveled the world at, 14 years old, and my mom came with me everywhere I went. I did Paris Fashion Weeks, I did New York Fashion Week, I went to Australia and I lived there for a month or 2, Milan, all those places. And she came with me everywhere. And, I definitely wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for my mom and her support. And I know it was a difficult thing for even her to navigate. She had 3 other children at home, and, we were all trying to figure out how we were going to do this. My grandpa was a huge help. He, would come with me places as well, and he would live with me places. He lived with me in LA for a bit. He traveled with me. And then when my older sister was 18, she would travel with me and she would live with me, which wasn't much help because she was 18 and I was 17. So you can imagine how fun that was for us to do. But, my mom always wanted to make sure I had somebody with me who was just like another set of eyes, making sure I was good. And I could take care of myself. And she made sure to teach me how to, read signs in an airport, and this is what this means, this is how you get to your gate, and this is how you do this, and don't take a car ride from a stranger, so she was really, really good at making sure I was able to do all of that. And then my siblings, I think it was really, we just didn't know, you don't know what you don't know. And I think we didn't really know any better. And it was like, oh, well, Taylor's doing this, so this is what she does now. And they were, nothing changed, I think, for them, because they didn't ever see me differently. They were just like, well, Taylor goes to work instead of goes to school, so whatever, and I think because we were all a similar age, they did have an understanding of what I was doing. It's not like they were, really young and didn't get it, or much older than me and didn't understand why I didn't want to go to school or didn't go back to college and stuff. They were kind of accepting of it. And my older sister now is a photographer and a content creator herself. So she really got it, she gets it. And she saw what I wanted to do and, that I loved what I was doing. So she was really helpful and supportive of that. So yeah, it was definitely interesting. I look back on it and I'm like, oh wow, how did we do that? I don't know. We just kind of did it,
Yeah. At the time, was it exciting or was it scary? Or what parts were exciting and what parts were scary?
I was really excited just because I wasn't very good at school and I didn't love being in school. I was really distracted, daydreaming, kind of didn't pay attention very well. I didn't learn things very easily, not very good at math. And I remember the first time being on a set and feeling so excited because I was like, oh my God, I can do this instead. And once I started booking more and more jobs and school became more and more difficult to keep up with, we looked into so many different options. I did do homeschooling for a little bit. And ultimately, that was still really difficult based off of how much I was working because, you have to put in at least 5 to 6 hours a day, even on online school, because you have to commit an hour or so for each class. I was in different time zones. Getting one-on-one time with my teachers to explain something to me was very difficult. So, I tried to go back to regular high school, but, in Colorado, they don't have these child entertainment laws like they do in California. There was no structure for me to be able to do both. So ultimately I dropped out of high school and I got my GED instead. And I left school totally at 15 and started full-time modeling at 15. And to me, it was really exciting because I felt like all I would think about while I was in school was, I can't wait to get out of here. Stay in school. You know what I mean? Don't do what I do. No, I'm just kidding. I do value school. I think education is really important, but I do think that it's not always for everyone and people learn differently. And I feel like I went to sort of a school of life, I guess you could say. I kind of learned by doing and by seeing the world. So I have a different education than what academia maybe teaches you. So I am grateful that I got to experience some school, obviously, and a normal childhood to an extent until about 15. But I'm grateful I left and I was done and doing what I was doing by 15. I felt like, okay, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. So I was just ecstatic. I was where I was meant to be,
Yeah. It's amazing hearing your passion and drive. Like after all these years, you said you've been modeling for 14 years and I can feel like it's still this energizing feeling. What was that transition like from that to becoming a Victoria's Secret model? Like, what is that journey like? Like, what is that arc like? Like, how hard is it to move from Paris Fashion Week and New York Fashion Week and doing runways and then going to actually be a Victoria's Secret model at the time?
It was really interesting because, at that time, Victoria's Secret was the end all be all. You know what I mean? It was not to everyone, but to a lot of models, it was, oh my gosh, the Victoria's Secret fashion show. It gave you more of a mainstream name, I guess. You were more, I guess, in the street, the pulse of pop culture, I guess. If you were a Victoria's Secret model, some of the most famous models in the world were Victoria's Secret models. Giselle Bündchen is like one of my favorites, and I love her and look up to her. She's why I went to IMG, because I was like, Giselle Bündchen is at IMG. At the time she was. I don't think she still is, but when I signed with them, she was still with them. So I was like, I want to be where she is. And Carly Kloss is with IMG, and I wanted to be where she was. So I feel like when I went from doing, fashion and more commercial brands, like I did shoot a lot for H&M and Forever 21 and some of these younger maybe fashion lines that were more for, teenagers like myself. So I did work a lot with brands like that. And then kind of when I turned 18, I was switching into more of, adult modeling, which is so crazy because I was still so young, 18 years old. And I tried out for the Victoria's Secret fashion show just because, because why not? Everybody wants to do it. I wanted to try out and I wanted to do this. So I went and I auditioned for it. And when I booked it, I was shocked because I really didn't think that I would get it on the first time and on the first audition, because so many people go back multiple times. But probably because I'd had a fashion career and had been on runways since I was 14, I was able to sort of be in the room and kind of maybe know a little bit more about what was happening. Whereas I feel like some girls start modeling at 18, 16, 18, so they're still new and newer. And even though I was still really young, I had been working for 4 years. So I felt ready for it and I was excited for it. And when I booked it, I was shocked and I was like, I can't believe I'm here right now. No way, this is happening. What? So that was really scary. The scary thing was booking it. I was like, oh God, okay, all right, this is happening. But it was an amazing thing for my career, and I'm really grateful for it. And I'm grateful, that I got to do that because I wouldn't be sitting here if I hadn't. So I'm grateful for it for sure. I keep saying that, but I am.
No, I believe it. How many steps was that audition process? Like, what does that look like in terms of getting there? And what is it like? Like, what are you doing?
I mean, it was like 10 years ago now, so I have to try and remember what I did. But I'm pretty sure what happened was I knew the casting director who was casting for the Victoria's Secret fashion show. He was casting some of the other shows that I'd walked in before, like Michael Kors and, a couple of the other New York shows, as well as shows in Milan and Paris. So I was familiar with him. And for the Victoria's Secret fashion show, you go to a pre-casting with him and his casting team. And, you do the walk, they record you, they film you, they ask you questions. Where are you from? How old are you? What agency are you with? So it's just a little bit of your personality or the way you talk on video. And then they take your picture. And then I guess they probably take it back to the Victoria's Secret internal casting team that also does show casting. Because when you get into the main room at the Victoria's Secret headquarters, there's 5 or 6 people at a table in front of you and then 5 or 6 people behind them sitting in chairs, and they all have notepads, and there's a big camera and they're filming you, and you do the whole like walk thing and they ask you to do it again and you do that. So I did a pre-casting with the casting director directly, and then I went back in for a callback, which was the main casting. So they had probably seen my tape and seen my pre-casting video and thought, okay, let's request her for our main casting. So I went into that. And then, sometimes there's another one and there's another callback and, another casting you have to do. But I was working in LA, so I went to my casting and got on a flight and landed in LA and got a call that I booked the Victoria's Secret fashion show. So that's what I did. That's how it happened to me.
It's useful to know. I feel like it's like we need a picture in, right? Like, because if you've never done it, you just don't know what the process looks like. And you mentioned something that I've heard a lot of models talk about, how they went from like teen modeling to adult modeling, and also when you're still a teen. And like, how was that process for you? Because I've heard other people describe it as like it was uncomfortable, where certain poses or certain clothes or whatever, it was like, I've never worn something like this. Or did you feel that, or was it not like that for you? Was it just kind of like you enjoyed it? It was fun?
No, I didn't feel like that because I was just happy to be there. I was like, I'm just happy to be here. Also, I love it. Like I loved playing dress up when I was a kid, and I do it for a living. So like, how can I not be just having the best time ever, trying on all these clothes, doing all these things. Also, I did dance, wasn't very good at it, but I loved it. And I loved dancing, and I loved gymnastics, and I love moving. And, if you're on the right set and you have the right team around you, and, a lot of the Victoria's Secret team from that time, I've known them for a really long time, and I have worked with a lot of the photographers in the past, and it felt like a safe space, and my memory and my interpretation of that environment was that I was safe. So I felt comfortable, and I was just like, oh, this is what we're doing now. And I had the best time doing it. So for me, I never felt afraid to do anything. So I just was so excited, I guess. Or maybe I was just young. I was like, whoa. I don't know. Maybe a bit of both, So I don't know.
No, I love it. I never
felt, I know some people do feel that. And that's I have felt like that for sure, definitely, but maybe not in those instances, and maybe not at that time, just because a combination of, excitement, youth, never having that experience before, being excited to be there. So it kind of wiped away the fear a little bit. And maybe I was a little delusional and kind of was like, whoa, this is so cool. It's like rose-colored glasses a little bit, but I've been in scenarios where I'm like, nah, maybe not. So,
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, I love hearing that. I think for me, I mean, I moved to LA much later in life, but even for me, like as soon as I came to the United States, to me, being in the US is like living in a movie because we grew up watching American television in London.
Yep.
And so when I first landed in New York, I'd visited maybe once or twice in my teens with family. But I remember moving and like, even when I saw like a yellow school bus or I saw like a cop car or NYPD or whatever, like to me, it's like, I've only ever seen that in a TV show or a movie. And so it's really fascinating. And then you see the Empire State. And then when I moved to LA, it was the same thing. It was, wait a minute, even now when I'm driving down the streets and there's palm trees on either side, I'm like, I'm on vacation because yeah, in my head, like it's such a alien experience having grown up in London that, living in LA. So I kind of have some of that youthful enthusiasm around some of these things too, because it reminds me of a time when I used to watch TV religiously and what I grew up on. So I can resonate with that feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas someone will always be like, oh, don't you think LA's like this or New York's like this? I'm like, to me, it just reminds me of what I saw in the movies.
You're just like, wow, I can't believe I get to be here.
Yeah, exactly. I can't believe, I never imagined in a million years that my life would look this way.
Yeah.
And so I'm just taking it all in as opposed to seeing gaps and holes in it or whatever else it may be.
There's days where I see gaps and holes, but my overarching goal and perspective is to be, I'm in awe, and I am still in awe, and I can't believe I'm even sitting here right now. I'm like, this is crazy. So, it's just, that's just, I think my natural sort of energy and where I sit with things is just, wow, I'm here. Whoa, how'd I get here? And, like all humans do, every day is different. So there's definitely times where I'm just like, oh, whoa, this is, I don't like this. I don't like this feeling, or what's happening here and what's going on there. So there's definitely both. Like I don't want, the perception of me to feel like she just, whatever, she has no idea what's going on. She's in a bubble. Like, and I'm just, no, I just feel grateful. And I think the most important emotion for me to feel daily is gratitude. So I try to remind myself where I'm at and where I came from and just be grateful to be here. So that's my genuine consensus on things.
Yeah, you obviously have a hard work ethic and a drive, which is what you were talking about with sports and that discipline. Walk us through the discipline of being a Victoria's Secret model, like the diet, the workout, the plan, the day, like the hour. What does that look like? Because I think often it's another thing you don't ever see. Yeah. So you don't really know.
Yeah. So when I first started doing Victoria's Secret, I was very young and I was very lucky because I didn't have to work out that hard and I, didn't have to diet because I was 18 and, 6 feet tall. So, you can imagine how, lucky I was in terms of that sort of stuff. But then obviously as I was starting to grow up and mature as a woman in that arena, I did have to start working out. There was a time where I was like, okay, well, if I want to be in the best shape of my life for this one really important day, then I'm going to step it up a notch. So there was some preparation. Probably when I was like 21 to 22, I started amping it up in terms of like the exercise and diet and stuff like that when we were training for the show. But, sometimes there's such a negative connotation in terms of talking about those things because I think a lot of people have maybe an unhealthy perspective of it because Victoria's Secret wasn't inclusive and it wasn't a welcome space for everybody. It was welcome for, women who were 6 feet tall and naturally slim and, and then they were really fit on top of that. So if you're an outsider looking in, it looks like not everybody looks like that. And I don't see myself there. Yeah, fair enough. And like sometimes even I didn't see myself there, so I had to train hard to get there. But, I always tried to be as healthy as I could with it and, keep a positive outlook on it. For me personally, in my journey and like how I went about training for the Victoria's Secret fashion show, I sort of looked at it like maybe an athlete would. I'm not an athlete, obviously, but, the level of training that I would do and the diets I would be on, if a footballer came in and, started talking about his diet, people would accept it, I think, because he is an athlete. But, if I come in and say how I was working out and what I was eating because I'm a 6 foot tall, naturally slim woman. I think it could be, taken negatively and misconstrued, but I just want to assure people that, I did do it healthy. Like, I was very healthy when I was doing it. This is my natural physique. I know that everybody doesn't look like this and not everybody can relate to that. And that's, I hear you and I see you, and I hope you, don't take anything that I say and misinterpret it and say, like, to look like her, I have to do this. No, don't do that. Do what you need to do and for you and your body. And when I was training for that, I did what I needed to do for my body. So I can get into that. I did a lot of like HIIT cardio training. So I had a personal trainer who's amazing. Christina, she's near and dear to my heart. She's so intelligent. She has, a nutrition background as well. So she was making sure that I was eating the amount of food I should be eating for the exercise that I was doing. And so we sort of did like a mix of things. It was weightlifting. I love weightlifting. It's really fun. I'm a crazy person. Like, I love exercise. I love fitness. I like working out. It's good for my mental health. When I work out because I want to do it for my mind, not for how my body looks. But for the Victoria's Secret fashion show, obviously I was training for a reason. So I did care about, muscle definition and all that fun stuff. So we did like, weight training, weightlifting, it would be like interval, like we would, sprint on a treadmill and then hold a plank, kind of stuff like that. And I really liked that type of workout because it was, high energy and going from one thing to the next thing, and it was challenging, and it kind of sort of reminded me of maybe my gymnastics background and the sports I'd done before, where they're a little bit more dynamic and you're moving around a lot. And then, for diet, I would eat pretty healthy, just I would make sure I was gluten-free though, just because I think sometimes gluten can respond in your body in a negative way. So I know some people are gluten-free. Around the VS show, I would be gluten-free for about a month, no alcohol for about a month and a half or so leading up to the show day, just because alcohol is never going to help you if you're trying to gain muscle weight. So that was my sort of goal, was muscle, never managing or watching my weight. It was more just about making sure I was eating lean proteins. I had like protein shakes in the morning. I would have a gluten-free bagel. I would have eggs, vegetables. I ate chicken breast. I ate sweet potato. I ate sushi rice, fish. I ate all kinds of things like that, and making sure that it was enough based off of what the kind of exercise I was doing. So the trainer that would work with me on my fitness routine, she also worked with me on the food I was consuming. Hey, you need to make sure you're consuming, before you see me, you need to eat this amount. And then we come and we're going to work out and we're going to do this. And then you go home and you have this protein shake. So we know you're getting the right nutrients that you need to fuel your body. So yeah, hopefully.
That was very in-depth. I love it. Yeah, no, and I asked, Taylor, I genuinely asked because I do think it's an interesting thing around the discipline. And that's why I asked it from that perspective, because to me, the discipline, the work ethic, the focus, and I'm so happy that it was a healthy journey for you. And I think we're taking into account the fact that it may not be a healthy journey for everyone. And we recognize that it can cause challenges for others.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that time too, it was difficult for for women watching. And I know like the expectation that was put on women to look a certain way, I never want to feel like maybe I was a part of it and perpetuating that, just because of the way it was being presented, maybe, that I was just happy to be there again. I was just like, whoa, I'm so excited I get to be here. But I know what it meant to society. I know what people perceived it as, for sure. So I do take that into account. And I know it's a lot. And I hope people can maybe listen to me and my perspective and know, like, I was really healthy in the way that I was trying to do this and go about this. And I never want to like perpetuate that somebody should do something or, work out a certain way to look like a Victoria's Secret model, because, that's not fair. And not everybody needs to look like that. That's not what's beautiful. Beauty is so much more than what people were trying to make us believe it was at that time. So just wanted to put that out there.
No, I'm glad you clarified that. And I actually think you made a really interesting point, though. I think what's interesting, for example, like, I love watching basketball. I have nowhere near the physique of any basketball player on the planet. There's no one my size who plays basketball in high physique, whatever else it may be. And if you saw, I don't play basketball, but if I was to try and play basketball, when I was younger, I was great at a 3-pointer because I didn't need to like beat anyone or whatever. But I would never be expected to do what someone does on the court.
Yeah.
It's really interesting how the industry is then projected onto people thinking they have to be that. Whereas I can watch basketball knowing I never have to be that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part which is so interesting, that it's almost like a interesting pressure that if it becomes about beauty, it sets an unfair standard. But if it's about sports, like you just said, in one sense, you were training yourself like an athlete.
Yeah.
But I know I can't be Tom Brady, or I know I can't be LeBron James.
Me neither.
And I'm okay about that.
I also can't be Adriana Lima, and because that woman was amazing. And Giselle, I mean, they trained so much harder than even me. I did my best, but you know, I did what I knew I was comfortable and able and capable of doing, but they're them and they're their own person and they trained in their own way. And I did it my way too. So
no. And I hope anyone who's listening, like the reason why I wanted to open up that conversation is because it's also interesting to hear from someone who just loves what they do, is excited about it. And then naturally there's this bigger thing going on in society and culture and industry. And it's like, you might just be doing your thing and not know at a time when, you know, you don't realize it. How did you feel about when it stopped? And now, of course, we know it's coming back and the plan is to be more inclusive.
I'm really glad that it's coming back in a different way and from a different lens and a different perspective, because I think, you know, I'm so happy. I still work with Victoria's Secret and I'm, you know, I've been a part of the brand for 10 years and I've seen the shift that they've made and the changes that they're trying to make. And it's, to me, it's a little relaxing, you know, a bit of a breath of fresh air, because now I am at a different phase in my life where, you know, maybe I don't want to work out like that anymore. You know what I mean? When I was younger and, you know, it was exciting to do so, then sure, I could definitely, let's do this. But, you know, 10 years later, and also I haven't done that show in how many years now? How long has it been since the last one, you know? So 5 years, maybe 4, maybe more. I don't know. You know, I feel when it comes back, I'm excited that it's going to be so different, but also I hope that we can still maintain some of the fun, some of the glamour, some of the beauty, because I think reclaiming it for ourselves as women is really important, because, you know, if you want to feel sexy and you want to be sexy, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but you want to do it for yourself, not for the objectification of what men want, you know? So, and I think that's the difference now. And I think, you know, that's definitely the goal with the Victoria's Secret fashion show coming back, is to make sure that women are doing it. You know, we're comfortable. They ask me, you know, what wings would you want to wear? And are you excited about doing this? And, you know, what do you want to see when the show comes back? And I really appreciate that. You know, I value that they're asking how I feel and, you know, what I would like to see as a woman doing it, as a woman who's done it before, and, you know, will probably do it again. So I'm excited that it's going to be very different. And I hope that it can be perceived in a way that's, you know, not setting an unrealistic beauty standard, because that's 100% what it was. And, you know, maybe some of that like expectation was put on me, but I didn't realize it at the time because I was so young, you know. You don't know what you don't know. And now that I'm 28, you know, 10 years later from my first show, and if I look back on my first show, it's kind of like, I'm sure so many women who were at that show felt such an intense pressure to look a certain way and work out a certain way. And that's probably why some people had an unhealthy relationship with it. And maybe just the timing of my age and where I was at and where my headspace was at, I got really lucky that I didn't feel any of those things, but that doesn't mean it still wasn't happening for other people. And that doesn't mean that it didn't make society or other women watching it feel that way. So like, you know, I hope
really
that,
well said.
Yeah, there's definitely both. Like both sit with me. So
yeah. Everyone who's listening or watching, I can definitely, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I can see how much of it's such a complicated, complex, layered topic when it's personal but collective, and
it's hard to kind of verbalize and talk about something because it is very complex. So how do I put that into words? But I do see both, and it's weird. Two things can be true at the same time. You know what I mean? Sometimes emotions are parallel, and they're really just happening. One's happening here, and it's also happening, and you're going on the same path, and you're going to the same place, and you're feeling two different things at the exact same time. So I look back on it, and I have new emotions that sit alongside the old ones, and the joy and like the wow that I felt there. But then I can see how everything happened, and I can see the heaviness, and I can understand. Like I see where maybe by me talking so positively about it makes other people feel a negative way. Like I would never want to make somebody feel like that. So I have to acknowledge that and be like, okay, I know, I see now. We were in the early 2000s. We were in this bubble of this thing, and it popped, and now we can see clearly, and I see it. So I get it. But also, if I'm going to talk about my personal experience while I was in it, I did have a great time, and I personally went about it in what I feel like was as healthy as I could possibly be. Like, trust me, I was eating, I was working out, I was doing all the things like I should be doing to make sure that I'm not, being unhealthy and having like a negative thing that was happening in my mind and my body. So,
well, I really appreciate that kind of the way you've presented that, because I think there's so much truth to it. And I think if anything, it helps us become more aware of, hey, let's try and be aware of bubbles. But by the nature of a bubble, you're not aware of it until it pops. And so when it pops, then we all become aware of it. And then all of a sudden, so it's almost like we've got to give ourselves grace. We've got to give others grace. We've got to give everyone time and space to kind of understand and grow and rise together.
Yeah.
Because, and this doesn't just apply to the beauty industry or the modeling industry. This applies to so many industries across the world, where I think there's a need for collective grace on both sides, and then rising together. And I completely agree with you. I think you're allowed to have your own experience. I almost think about it sometimes to do with entrepreneurship too. Like, a lot of people will be like, entrepreneurship is really tough. It's really hard work. And there's the hustle culture of you have to work 18 hours a day, and you have to do this and you have to do that. And I always say to people, like, if I'm completely honest, for the first 3 years of my career, I did work 18 hours a day. And I'm really happy I did. Like, it was amazing. And I'm really grateful. And yes, some parts of it were unhealthy, but it allowed me to get to where I wanted to get to in order to put things in place to be more healthy. And that's my personal experience of it. And that's not right or wrong or the best way or the worst way. It's just how it's worked for me. And you could look at that and be like, oh, well, 18 hours is a hustle culture and there's no balance. And I'm like, but it's each of us have got to find what's comfortable and natural for us. And you're allowed to have your own experience and also recognize that there's negatives within it.
Yeah. Because you were working those 18-hour days, and when you realize, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, or you have maybe this realization of, maybe I should have more balance in my life, maybe I should do this. Oh, okay. Like, then you can maybe fix it and grow from it and change and not do that anymore. But it doesn't mean that when you were doing it, you were, having a terrible time. Maybe you were having fun and you were just excited that you get to do this work and all that stuff. And then you can look back on it and be like, whoa, I was actually more overwhelmed than I thought I was. Oh, okay. Like, that's what that was. Because sometimes you feel these things and some new emotions that you've never felt before, and you can't pinpoint what it is exactly until you hear somebody else say it. Or there's a new topic of discussion where people are like, do you guys ever feel this? And then you're like, I do feel that. What is that? And then you discover, oh, it's burnout.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, see, there was never a word for it before. That's what that is. So it's just like acknowledging and recognizing something, and then being like, okay, well, we're not going to do that anymore. But I did do it. So, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I think about that. When I was young, I used to have certain physical sensations or experiences in my heart space, in my chest space. And I would go to the doctors. I would tell my mom, and we'd go get checked out. And the doctors had no clue. They were like, you're absolutely fine. Yeah. And now I look back and I'm like, oh, I had anxiety. Oh, I had panic attacks. I had no idea. And no one ever used that language. I saw multiple doctors. No one ever said it to me. And so I just moved on with life and got on with it, and became better at dealing with it. And now I look back and I'm like, oh, now there's a word for it. And now we can label it and talk about it, but I didn't know then. And there's been definitely times in my life where I've been in denial that I've been in stress or burnout. And then I look back and I'm like, oh, now I can notice it. But at that time I just needed to push through, or whatever it may be. But I mean, talking about this and talking about relevant emotional experiences, I was talking to you about my friend earlier, and you were talking to me about the experience you went through. You shared this on social media. You talked about the loss of Tate and the grief you've experienced, which is what's led to Tate and Taylor, which is this incredible new platform and company that's supporting so many people. I want to talk about what you've built and the passion and the purpose behind it. But let's talk about the grief of losing a friend, because that's really what this is, a really dear friend. Walk me through those 9 years and the amazing relationship you built with Tate.
Yeah. Tate, oh, my angel. I got Tate when I was 18. So it was really kind of in the mix of all my life changing. You know, I booked the Victoria's Secret fashion show not very long after Tate came into my life. And we walked through life together for 9 years, and he was my best friend. And oh gosh, it's so hard to put it into words because it's such a unique thing to have a deep relationship with an animal. And I hope I don't sound crazy. Maybe I'm going to sound a little crazy, but like, I just feel like the love that, you know, dogs and animals in general have for humans is so unconditional, you know, and they have no judgment. They don't want anything from you but your love back. And it's so pure and it's so innocent. It's almost childlike in a way, you know, when I can only imagine, you know, when you hold a newborn baby for the first time, that immediate connection that you feel to this thing that can't even talk yet and is just a part of you. It's really special to have such a deep connection to something that literally wants nothing from you except for also the like unconditional love. So to have Tate come into my life at that time was so special, just because so much was changing. You know, I was growing up, I was, you know, becoming a young woman, from a girl to a woman, and he was there for that. And, you know, I was traveling all the time and I was away from family, and I just had this little tiny innocent soul with me that just always looked at me like, you're the best and I love you. And Tate taught me so much. I mean, he taught me, you know, responsibility, caring for something other than myself, you know, taking care of him, you know, pouring love into him and making sure that he was good and, you know, even well-behaved, and training him and doing all those things is showing him an act of love and making sure that he's a confident, comfortable dog. He could be in any scenario, and he was the best boy. And I think he also kind of knew that I was just kind of out there winging it a bit. And he was like, oh God, this girl has no idea what she's doing. So I'm going to have to be a good boy now. And I really sometimes feel like he did teach himself how to just be everywhere with me all the time. And I think that he was meant for me and he was meant to be in my life. And I think that we were sort of made for each other and we belonged to each other. And, you know, he was so, it sounds crazy to say this about a dog, but he was so emotional. Like his eyes were so human. He could look at me and I knew what he was saying or what he was thinking, or I felt that he could feel what I was thinking or what I was feeling. And I definitely think that he also taught me a lot about, you know, emotion and, you know, being, you know, what's that saying, you know, be the person your dog thinks you are. They think you're great, you know? They're like, I love you no matter what. Yes, mom, yes. So that's the energy they give you, right? It's like, oh, you're the best. And it's just like, am I the best? But to have something, you know, this little creature just look at you and think you're the best, it kind of makes you want to be the best, right? You know, constantly trying to grow and be better and change. And, you know, nobody's perfect and no one will ever be perfect. And we're always learning and we're always growing and we're always changing. But having something to do that for and having someone to do that with is really it's different, you know, like it's more intentional, right? So trying to be better because Tate thinks I'm the best is a different motivation. So he definitely was there for me through, so much of my life and so much of my life changing. I think from, 18 to 27 are pretty formative years. I'm not a doctor, but someone told me once that your brain stops developing at 25 or something. So, he was there. Oh, sorry, I hit the mic. I talk with my hands. He was there from when I had an undeveloped brain to a developed brain. He kind of just saw me through, and he was just the best. I mean, the love of my life. I mean, my soulmate, really, because he just knew, and I've never had a connection with anyone like that I've had with Tate. So I'm really grateful that he was in my life. He's the inspiration behind me even wanting to start a pet company, just because I love him so much. And I know other people have felt that before. People who've had, what I like to call a soul dog. They know what I'm talking about. They know that feeling. And when I shared that I lost Tate, people who'd been on my journey with me and been maybe following me for a bit know the day I got him, and maybe saw him on my Instagram all the time. I mean, he was probably in every single picture on my Instagram for 9 years. So I feel like people felt like they knew him. And when I shared that he was sick, and then when I ultimately shared that he had passed, the overwhelming amount of support and messages that I got, and also shared experiences that I received from I lost my soul dog 10 years ago, and I still think about them every single day. It made me feel less alone and less maybe kind of strange for feeling this way about a dog, because you get both. I got amazing, overwhelming comments that were just overwhelmingly positive. I mean, just I know what you're going through. I went through this, just remember he's always with you. I got messages like that touched me so deeply and positively. And I just felt so grateful that I got those messages. But then of course you get the flip side where people don't understand. They're like, oh, it's a dog. What's the big deal? Oh, it's a dog. Move on. I'll never move on from Tate's death. My grief will change for sure. My perspective of his death will change. And it has, even since I lost him. It's devastating and it's heartbreaking. And, to anyone who's felt that, I know what that feels like. And don't let anybody rush you. Some people don't understand that it's just because this is a dog and, not a person. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve the same amount of time and space and energy you would give to grieving anything else. So I would just say, take your time, and you're not alone. And it's not a fun thing to go through at all. So I think I'll always miss Tate. I don't see how I can't, and I think to say to get over something is such a harsh way of saying it, because I'll probably never get over it. I'll never really get over losing Tate. I can heal from it and I can find, peace with it, but those are two completely different things. Getting over it, how do you get over that? It's not something it's not a object in my way. He's a part of me and he's no longer here. So yeah, I definitely think losing a pet is tough, and losing one that you have such a deep, strong connection with, that's been with you for so many things with no expectation from you other than just they want to be there with you, that's a tough loss and a tough thing to work through. So
thank you for sharing that. I mean, like I was saying to you, I've had 2 friends recently who've both lost pets dogs that they were close to for many, many years. And I've been talking to them. And when this opportunity came up to talk to you, I was thinking about you and then thinking about them. And I can't wait to share this conversation with them, because I don't think there's anyone who has a pet that they're deeply close to that sees it as a loss that's different of any kind. And why would you, when that person has been there with you through all these experiences? Walk us through, like, what is it like when you get that call or you have that meeting with the vet or the doctor that goes, this is the condition that Tate has, and please tell us a bit about the condition and that experience, because I feel like, to me, when I think about grief and loss, it's like that point in the journey is so pivotal to everything that comes after it, because it's like the first time it really hits you that this may not last.
Yeah. And also it can dictate your journey and how you grieve and why you're grieving. So Tate was diagnosed with T-cell lymphoma, and, you know, he was acting strangely probably less than a month before his diagnosis. It was little things, very subtle things, and almost things that were already kind of things that he had been doing before, but they were just a little bit more frequent or a little bit more extreme. And I was like, well, that's really weird. So Tate had a very sensitive stomach. He would always sometimes, I don't want to say the word throw up, but sorry guys if you're triggered by that. He would throw up his food sometimes, and he like, it didn't always like sit well with him. And he had like, you know, already had like digestion problems from when he was a puppy. But probably a couple weeks before his cancer diagnosis, he was still throwing up food. He was like drinking water excessively, like drinking a lot of water. Like he seemed very, very thirsty. And then when I ultimately was like, okay, something is really, really wrong, it was incontinence. So he was peeing in the bed at night, which was, he never did that. He was such a good boy. I was like, he would never do this intentionally. So I took him to the doctor, and I was like, something is wrong. He's, you know, it's not strange or abnormal that he's throwing up his food, but it's strange that he threw up water yesterday, and it's strange that he peed in the bed. And I don't think that those are normal things. So, you know, they're doing blood tests. His calcium levels are off. I don't remember in what way, just because honestly, it's all a bit of a blur because it was a very emotional time. So, but I do remember his calcium levels. There was something wrong there. So they did another test that was a bit more of a deep dive into that. They were like, okay, yeah, this is a problem. We should probably do an x-ray. So, you know, that was a week ago. So now it's a week later, and, you know, getting these appointments and like seeing the doctors, you know, it's just sometimes not always easy, even in dogs, even, you know, in veterinary circumstances, it's weirdly sometimes similar to human doctors, you know, it's just getting these appointments and getting in to see, it's like, well, something is wrong. Can we just do this now? Why are we sitting here and waiting? He doesn't feel good. So we go in for the x-ray, and, you know, sure enough, they find a mass in his shoulder, in his lymph node near his shoulder. And they're like, okay, well, we think it's lymphoma. So, you know, you need to take him to an oncologist. And, you know, these are the oncologists that we recommend. I'm calling every hospital in New York that I possibly can to see, you know, who can I take him to right away. Everyone was, you know, this was maybe May. Everyone was like, our next appointment isn't until June 16th. Our next appointment isn't until July 16th. I'm like, okay, well, my dog was just diagnosed with cancer, or what they think to be is cancer. I can't imagine that he can wait until June or July. And I don't really know what to do next. So he starts getting worse, and he's not eating anymore, and he has no appetite, and he can't keep even water down. So my husband actually takes him to the vet. I'm out of town when this is happening, and she says, he's in a really bad state. He's severely dehydrated. You need to take him to the emergency room right now. And they'll check him into the ICU, and then he'll be seen by an oncologist. And I was like, why didn't you tell me that before? Oh my God, I would have done that a week ago. Even though he wasn't in a state of emergency, we think he has cancer. We think he has T-cell lymphoma. That's very aggressive. So my husband takes him to the emergency room, and sure enough, they check him into the ICU. He's, you know, very severely dehydrated. He's very weak. He hasn't eaten in like 2 days, and he's on a wait list to see an oncologist that day. And wow, remembering all this is hard because I wasn't in town when this was happening, and I get these calls that Tate's in the emergency room, Tate's in the ICU. I'm not there. I'm petrified. I'm going to lose him. I'm not going to be there. And he's seen by the oncologist. They do all the tests. They do all of the scans. Yes, he does have T-cell lymphoma. It's throughout his entire body. He has multiple, masses on multiple lymph nodes. And he definitely doesn't have much more time left. So I get home as soon as I can. I'm in the ICU with him, and all of this is happening days before our wedding, actually. I was in the hospital with him on a Monday, and on Thursday I was meant to fly back home to Colorado to get married, and I'm in New York in the hospital in the ICU with Tate. And I'm looking at him and I'm asking him, like, if you need to go, like, please let me know. Like, I will let you go. Like, I don't want to make him do anything that he doesn't want to do, because sometimes I feel like when you're dealing with a sick animal, we can be quite selfish, and I want him to be there, and I want him to be okay, and I want him to be at my wedding, and all these things that I want. But what about him? He doesn't feel good. He's sick. He's in the hospital. So Tate was at the Animal Medical Center in New York, the Schwarzman Animal Medical Center. And a lot of what we do at Tate and Taylor is I have a whole cancer, like a fuck cancer merch collection line where 100% of the profit that we make goes back to a fund that they have at the Animal Medical Center called the Buddy Fund. And what the Buddy Fund does is help subsidize the cost or cover the cost in total of chemotherapy and cancer treatments in pets.
Amazing.
It's an incredible program, and it's an incredible hospital. And a part of my journey and story with Tate, so much of it has to do with the oncology department at the Animal Medical Center is amazing. They're the largest nonprofit hospital in the world, and they have so many amazing programs there. They're a teaching hospital, so it's a great place. Tate was in the best hands when he was there, and even though I was going through something quite emotional and a turbulent time of, is he going to make it to one of the most special days of my life, or is he not? I had an amazing doctor there. She was so supportive. She was about to get married. She was, getting married a week after me. So she was, I have a dog. And she was like, I can't imagine what you're feeling right now. I mean, she's like, I can't imagine what you're feeling right now. Getting married, your dog in the hospital, this is your baby. And, he might not be there. So the oncology team was so amazing with Tate and with me. They did everything in their power. They're like, well, we think we should start, the CHOP protocol, which is what he started. And he started responding to it really positively. So I'm, that was a small segue. Cut back to, I'm looking at Tate. I'm like, please tell me, like, do you want to fight this? Like, are you going to stick it out? You don't have to do that. You don't have to come. I know I want you to, but I need to do what's best for you. And after I, said this to him, he's going in to have a feeding tube put in because he's not eating, and he's about to start the CHOP protocol. They want to make sure he has nutrients in his body. So they put a feeding tube in so that they can start administering, nutrients to him. And immediately flipped. He went from looking like he was on death's doorstep to Tate. He was wagging his tail. He was energetic. He was, doing it. He was him. I was like, it was the next day. And this was Wednesday. I'm supposed to leave Thursday for the wedding. My mind was blown. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I was like, Tate, are you lying to me right now? What are you doing? What is this? All of a sudden, he knew he wanted to be there. I asked him, I was like, what do you need? What do you want? They put the feeding tube in. They're administering his first dose of the CHOP protocol, and he's able to get some nutrients in his body. He's a different dog. I'm like, okay, this dog wants to fight this for me. He wants to pull through right now. So he does make it to the wedding. It was an amazing, beautiful experience to be able to share that with him, because literally every person who he's ever loved and who has ever loved Tate was there, and they got to say goodbye to him, as, not to sound morbid, but it's in a way sort of cancer in dogs is it's not curable. They don't live much longer than maybe a year, sometimes in some cases two. Like, it's different, they treat dogs to live the best quality of life that they can for the rest of their lives until they get to a point where it's okay, well, it's their time. So it was a way for people to say goodbye to him because we knew he wouldn't be around for much longer. We didn't know how much longer, but it wasn't going to be much longer. And it was really special. My best friend from my childhood, someone I've known since I was 5 years old, he was what did I call him? Oh, my man of honor. And he walked him down the aisle, and it was really special. And people were crying, and everyone was hugging Tate and kissing Tate, and just, it was so special for me to be able to see and feel the love for him, knowing what he had gone through and what we were going through. And it truly felt like a miracle that he made it there and that he was there that day. So then, we get back to New York, and he's on maybe number 2 or 3 of his doses. It's a 16-week process, and we were probably only on like week 2. And so because he had T-cell lymphoma, it's very aggressive, and it adapts in the body really quickly. And, since Tate had tumors throughout his entire body, we didn't know how he would respond to it. He was 9 years old, so he was older, but he wasn't old, I guess. So the doctors were like, well, we're not really sure. He's 9, it's old, but he's still energetic. He's still quite youthful. Like, we're going to kind of play it by ear and see how this goes. And then we were in New York for maybe about a week, 10 days or so. And he started to get really, really bad again, really bad. We take him back to the emergency room. He's back in the ICU, and they're doing all the blood work and the tests and, checking on him. And the cancer in his body had adapted to the chemotherapy treatments, and it was attacking his kidneys now. And essentially, his doctor said if he doesn't pass from the cancer, he'll pass from kidney failure. So right now we're in a position where there's not much more we can do, and he's not comfortable. He's in a lot of pain. He's very sick. She said, it's completely up to you, and I can't tell you what to do. All I can tell you is where he's at, the condition of his health right now is not good. So, we ultimately have to come to the decision to let Tate go, because I don't want him to live like that. That's so selfish, I think, to try to keep treating him when he's not, he shouldn't be, So we were able to make an appointment with a doctor that does humane euthanization in home, so that Tate could be with me, my husband, and we were in our home together, and we got to hold him. And, he didn't have to go back to the hospital, because going there was a scary thing for him. I could tell it was stressful, because that's where they would take him away from me. And I knew he wanted to be with me. He was very attached to me. So I didn't want to have to take him back there. I didn't want him to have to pass in that environment. Not to speak negative, it wasn't a negative space at all. I was actually very happy. It was a very beautiful space. The doctors were amazing there, and it was both. It was tough because it was what we were going through was so difficult, but they were so amazing. They were so positive. Their energy was so great. So it wasn't that it was a dark, scary place. It was just, I want him to feel as comfortable as possible. And I know that by him walking in there, he would be like, oh no, like I'm in this place again. They're going to take me away from you, Mom. So I didn't want to bring him back there and have to, his last moments be in a place where he didn't know what was going to happen to him. So we did it at home. And it was really special that I got to hold him and, comfort him and be with him. That was the most important thing to me. I absolutely have to be there. Like, I have to be there. And I think he knew that, and I think he wanted me to be there, and he waited so that we could do it together, and we could be together. And it's a tough thing, you know, like having to, you know, witness someone die is not fun. Especially him, you know, for me, he was everything to me. And just based off of that experience that I have with him, I know so many people probably have felt that way, have been in a similar situation, and I know it's really hard going through that. So I'm grateful for the way that everything happened with me, with Tate. It's so crazy. They know. They're these spiritual beings. I think animals are more spiritual than us. They have so much more, they have different types of consciousness, I think, than people do. He knew what I needed, and he knew how I needed him to go, and he really did that for me. And it was really, even though it was really tough, it was really also beautiful at the same time to be able to hold him in his last moments, and he was there for me for every single moment, and I got to be there for him in this moment. He didn't feel fear, he didn't feel pain. I held him in my arms, and I was, you know, I got to hold him. So he was I know he was comfortable, and I felt that with him, and that's why I wanted to be there, so I just could make sure that he felt nothing but comfort and no pain and just happiness and love. Like, he could feel my love. So that's sort of the story of Tate and his illness and his cancer and what, you know, sort of what we went through. And, you know, treating cancer is so expensive, even with insurance. And, you know, part of why the Buddy Fund is something that we're so passionate about, and why I feel like I want Tate and Taylor as a brand to be really cause driven and have an initiative and have a purpose and have a reason behind it, is because of, you know, what I went through with Tate. I started building Tate and Taylor with him, not knowing that any of this would happen. And then before we even got to launch and start the company publicly, I lost him, and it shifted sort of a lot of the drive and some of the purpose that we have. And having to decide between having a financial burden and being in a place where you may or may not be able to financially care for your pet, and those last precious moments, the ones that even I know I got to have with Tate, those last few weeks with him were the best weeks ever in my memory of my life with him, because he got to come to my wedding. He was back to himself for a little bit. These like special little things and times that we shared together, they were so important in how I was able to heal going forward once I did lose him. So I think being able to help support people who are going through this with their pets and go through cancer, and, you know, that journey and that path and what that looks like, is something I have such a passion for, and something I really want to be able to help, because I went through all of this with him, and I know what that feels like, and I know what that pain is, and what that weight feels like, and what the grief feels like. How can I be there for other people, and how can I help other people who are going through this, so they never have to think about that. And that's why we picked the Buddy Fund, just because of the experience that I had with Tate at AMC, and so many people. I know so many people who've had that experience. And, you know, I spoke with Tate's oncologist, Dr. Rachel Lordahl, and you know, we posted it on the Tate and Taylor Instagram, and I got a couple of comments that were like, I love Dr. Rachel. She was there for me with my dog, and, you know, she's amazing. And so people feel it from that place. And that fund is so impactful, because when you're going through something like that, to have to worry about whether or not you can afford care, and whether or not you can even get that extra time, and just see how they're even going to respond to treatment. I mean, I don't even want to, nobody wants to have to go there and make that decision. So I got so much support when I lost Tate, and I just want to do everything I can to support others, because I know other people go through this, and there are people in that position, and it breaks my heart to even think that somebody would have to go through. Yeah, I can't. It's hard to verbalize that pain, and because I can so clearly visualize what that feeling could be, and having to make that decision. And I got to make it when I did with Tate, and I'm so grateful that I was able to do that. And I just want to be able to share, to like give that back, give that time, give it to others. Like, how can I help give people more time with their soulmates, I guess.
Taylor, thank you so much for opening up so intimately about that journey. And I remember seeing the beautiful and amazing pictures and memories you shared with Tate on social media, but to hear the actual journey behind it, just thank you so much for being so open and giving. And I'm very confident that, I mean, I haven't lost a pet or a dog, and I don't know what that feels like, but even just sitting here listening to you, I know that anyone who has, or anyone who may do so in the future, will have this to turn to as a way of connecting with, and to humanize their experience, and also validate their experience of how deeply they love this friend in their life. And I wanted to ask you, two questions. What would you, for anyone who is grieving the loss of a pet friend, a dog, like, what would you want them to know about the grieving process? And the second question is, if someone has a friend or family member that's going through it, what would you like them to know in order to offer help or support to that person?
I would say if you're going through this loss, and you're, coping with this type of grief, I think patience. Just be patient with yourself. Feel it, Grief is like an ocean. Sometimes it's relentless. Sometimes it's calm. Sometimes the waves are huge and crashing. Sometimes it's completely still and beautiful and peaceful, and you're able to just float. So wherever you're at, whatever your ocean is doing, just feel it, because one moment it'll feel really calm, and you'll feel a sense of perspective, maybe a sense of peace. And then there'll be a memory, or you'll be in a situation where it brings something back up, and then the waves come crashing in. And, that's okay. Sometimes, I'm almost a year to the day that I lost Tate, and I'm not fully healed yet. And I think that's going to take maybe a couple more years to even feel like I can say I'm healed from that. I don't think anyone ever necessarily moves on. And I think if they hear the words move on, don't take that, let that roll right off you, because that's not what maybe they mean. To move on, you may never move on, but to heal is different. To heal a wound so it no longer opens is a different thing. And I would say to make sure that you're doing the steps and taking care of yourself in the way you need to heal, because it is a wound. How would you go about, if you broke your arm, you would go to the doctor, you would, set it in a cast, you would do all these steps to make sure your arm could work again. So I think that losing someone is sort of, it's a wound. It's an internal wound. It breaks something in our spirit. So it's not something you can see, but it's something that needs addressing. It's something that needs help. It needs time. However you need to do that, and whatever your process looks like to deal with healing. And if you don't know how to do that, I think talking to someone, anyone, it doesn't even have to be a therapist, because I know a lot of people like to say, go to therapy. Well, some people don't have access to therapy yet, and that's okay. But talking about it, if there's someone you can relate to, if you can find anyone in your life who will listen and help you grieve, and, talk through it with you, writing about it, talking to yourself about it. If you prefer writing or journaling, or I think there's a couple of different ways to get started in terms of, well, I don't even know how to heal. What does that mean, Taylor? Where do I start? What's the process look like? It's different for everyone, but I think knowledge is power and learning. And if you don't know where to start, you can talk to someone and maybe ask a couple of questions or ask yourself questions or write things out and start really small and start there. And then hopefully, you can start growing on that and expanding on, okay, well, this is what it means to heal. This is my process. This is how I'm going to do this. And, find the tools that work for you or create the tools that work for you. Who knows? It's different for everybody. So however that looks like to you, whatever that feels like to you, as long as you're doing what you need to do to ultimately heal from it, I think that's a really great place to start, is just to start thinking about it from there. Don't worry about moving on or getting over it, or if the emotions are stronger sometimes than others, they can be really unexpected. It hits you like a wave some days, and that's okay. Feel it, sit there, write about it, think about it. I mean, if you want to ignore it for a little bit, you can, but make sure you're always coming back to it and acknowledging it and addressing it. And then you can sort of like let it go and be like, okay, I see you, I hear you, I feel you. We're going to acknowledge that emotion, and then we can let it go. And then I think that's like, those are really good ways to kind of start healing.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I loved what you were saying about people discovering their own tools, discovering their own way, not feeling like there has to be a set formula. And even listening to this conversation, and I do think I've been encouraging a lot of my friends to reach out to other people who've gone through similar experiences, because not that your healing will look the same, but that it feels necessary to sit with other people who you feel see you, hear you, understand you. And my friend told me something beautiful about grief that I don't think I'll ever forget. They said to me that grief is like a stone, and you carry it in your pocket, and you'll always notice it, you'll feel it, it's there. But as time goes on, you get stronger. And so as you get stronger, it's not that the stone goes away, it's just that it gets lighter.
Wow.
And so it's lighter to carry, but it doesn't mean it's going away. You didn't move on. You didn't have to get over it. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't get smaller. It stays the same. You just get stronger, so the stone gets lighter.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that idea around grief, because it sat true with me that it didn't have to go away. I didn't have to let go of it. I didn't have to forget about it. And that it would always be there. But just as I grow and as I strengthen and as I become more resilient, it becomes lighter and doesn't weigh on me in the same way as the heavy feeling of grief can in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so,
That's
thank you for,
analogy.
I mean, it sounds like, you shared with me before that there was something you wanted to share with our community here that you hadn't shared before. And when you mentioned it to me, there's something beautiful you said, and it was this idea of how Tate has actually been with you through another loss in your life. And that's a journey that you haven't shared before. Could you walk us through how Tate was your best friend through that journey too?
So about 3 years ago, I had a miscarriage, and I've never spoken about it before, except for obviously to people in my life, and my family knows, and my close friends know, and I've shared it with some people, and I do think talking about it is an important thing, but I've never publicly spoken about it or said that I went through that, and I kind of made the decision that since I'm talking about Tate, and I'm starting this business based off of the love that we have for each other and how I want to be there for people. He was there for me in so many ways, and how can I share that without sharing something that I went through that he was there for me for. And in grieving his loss, I'm grieving the shared experiences we've had and learning how to cope with something without him when he was there for me through that time in my life. It was a really strange circumstance under which I had my miscarriage, I had an IUD. I had it for about 3 years. So I obviously, I wasn't actively trying to get pregnant. I didn't want to get pregnant at all. I was, engaged to my husband, and, we were not planning on starting a family probably for a while. So I wasn't in the headspace at all to be pregnant. And, I'm not really sure how it happens because I don't know how that works. I'm not a doctor, and I didn't understand it. And sometimes I still don't understand it because, I'm pretty sure I could be wrong on this. I probably should have looked it up before I came in here so I could say exactly. But it's a really small percentage, like a small chance of getting pregnant on an IUD. It's like less than 1% or something like that, which is still, still a chance. Like it can still happen, of course, but it's some crazy things happen to someone, and it's like, oh, that'll never happen to me. It happened to me. I got pregnant on an IUD, and I was shocked, and I was sad. I didn't want to be pregnant. I wasn't ready to be pregnant. I didn't understand what it meant to be pregnant with an IUD. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what my journey with this pregnancy would look like. I was so scared. I was terrified. And also it was still during COVID. So my husband he wasn't able to be with me. He was in London, and he was kind of not allowed to travel into the US. So I found he was with me in the beginning of COVID and the pandemic, but because he's British, he was on an ESTA, and they were getting people out on tourist visas. So his exception to fly out was so he didn't overstay his ESTA, because that's the last thing we wanted. We were, planning on getting married. Like we can't get marks on, all that stuff. So he left the country because he had to. And so then we were separated, and we were no longer able to be together. I don't think I saw him for maybe another couple of months after that. So he wasn't with me when I found out I was pregnant. And that was really hard for both of us, because all you want to do when you're going through something like that, as shocking and unexpected as it was for the both of us, is to be there with each other. I know he wanted more than anything in the world to hold my hand, like tell me it's going to be okay, like hold me. And, that's all I wanted too. And I couldn't be with him. And Tate was with me though. We were together, and I'm so grateful that I had him physically to be there with me physically. My husband was there for me in every way that he possibly could be, but I had the physical connection, that holding, that comforting, that's something that you need in that space. It was breaking both of our hearts that we didn't have that, couldn't do that. And I think it both gave us like comfort knowing that I had Tate with me for that. I had to go to my doctor's appointments alone. I, went in to make sure that I didn't have what's called an ectopic pregnancy, which is when the embryo attaches itself in the fallopian tube. My pregnancy was in my uterus, so it was viable. It was technically healthy, but the circumstances in the environment on which I conceived was a bit of a turbulent environment. So, my doctor said, we don't really know what's going to happen here because, you conceived in an environment where your body is telling you shouldn't be pregnant because of the IUD, because of the hormones that the IUD is putting into your body. And also if we remove it, then, we're changing again the environment on which you conceived. So, it's we don't know 50-50 of whether or not you're gonna, carry this out. So, it was really just a waiting game to see if it would stick or not. And I was given a couple of markers of, come back at about 6.5 weeks and we can do an internal ultrasound and, check everything out and see how it's going. So, I'm waiting another week or so. I go back in, they do the internal ultrasound, are able to hear a heartbeat. And, at this point I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening to me? This is so crazy. I'm going through all these things. I have a photo. I have the picture, of the ultrasound. Like, that's so great. It was like this big, you know what I mean? And so I'm at a place in my life where, okay, maybe I wasn't planning to get pregnant, and I wasn't ultimately excited about it at first. I was scared, not excited. I was shocked. I was confused. I was feeling fear. I wasn't feeling joy. But at the same time, I'm going to marry this person. I'm in love with this person. I want to have a family with this person. I'm 20. Was I 25 or was I 24? I think I was 25. I'm 25. That's still young, but I feel somewhat ready if I was to have a child. Okay, so I'm going to start getting in the headspace now of, I think I'm going to, if this pregnancy sticks around, like, I'm going to have a child, okay? Oh gosh. So it's like I'm coming to so many terms of acceptance here where I'm just like, okay, but I can't get too excited because we don't know what's going to happen. I have to pass all of these milestones to make sure if this is going to be a healthy pregnancy or not. So I get to about roughly 9 weeks, and, she's like, okay, well, we're getting closer. She's optimistic that this could be happening. Usually it's about 12 to 14 weeks when you start telling people. So I'm like, oh my God, it's getting closer. Like, maybe this is going to happen. And I'm starting to accept that this is going to happen. It's still really early though. So of course I'm not too excited. I'm not at that check mark yet. And then, I start spotting, but it was like, it wasn't bright red. It wasn't blood yet. And so then the doctor was like, well, that's normal. Sometimes that happens. There is spotting with pregnancy. It's just your body adjusting. So, we'll just keep an eye on it. And about a week goes by, and then I start seeing what looks like fresh blood. And that's that's what she told me to look out for. And that's like kind of the early signs and, of what ultimately will be a miscarriage. So that starts happening, and, I'm alone in my house, and, at least I have Tate with me, and I call my husband, and, I'm just devastated because I know that this is about to happen to me, and we're both crying, and I could just tell he was so heartbroken, that he couldn't be there. I think that was really painful for him too, for both of us. And I've never spoken about it either, so like to this extent. So I have with my family, so this is also new for me to do this. It's like reprocessing again. Mm-hmm. I'm going through the physical reaction of having the miscarriage, and it takes some time. Like, what's happening while it's happening. It doesn't just like happen and then it's done. Like it takes a long time. It can be painful. It feels like a period cramps, but like your worst period cramps you've ever had. And ultimately it passes, and I have to make all these doctor's appointments. I have to, make sure everything's okay, make sure I'm healthy and all of that. So, right after dealing with this loss, you have to click into this mode of, I have to do all these things, and I have to make sure I do this and I do that, and logistics of getting to the doctor and like making sure and checking and making sure it was clean and everything that needed to passed. So, I kind of went into take care of it mode. And I just remember feeling so confused because it was really just like a roller coaster of emotion of, I didn't even know I didn't even want this. I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't planning on having a child. I was doing to the best of my ability. The IUD is one of the best forms of birth control, one of the most efficient forms of birth control. And, I was very confused. I was like, why is this happening? This is so wild. I can't believe this. I didn't want to necessarily be pregnant. And and then, okay, I make past a couple of checkpoints and I'm starting to feel a little like, oh gosh, this is going to happen. I'm starting to process emotions of coming to terms with this. Like, you do get excited. I wasn't allowing myself to get fully excited or to like be too optimistic about it. I tried to stay as neutral as I possibly could, but it's difficult. You can't control some of these things. I mean, this is what I'm feeling. So, I was like, okay, well, oh my gosh, like, is this happening? Like, whoa. So then there's a little bit of excitement and then, some joy because like I want a family. I'm excited to have children. And then I lose the pregnancy. It was early still, like when I lost it. So I wasn't luckily fully in the headspace of, oh my God, this is 100% happening. So in terms of the timeline, I am really grateful that I hadn't fully come to terms with it yet. But I was still really confused because I was like, whoa, processing this emotion of feeling like, I don't even want this to, maybe this is happening, and feeling some excitement and maybe some joy and then loss. It was so strange. And it was just all the things, it was really just two things can be true at once kind of a thing, where you feel these emotions that are, one is honestly, even with some time and some space now and some perspective, relief. Wow, the timing wasn't right. Everything happens for a reason. I wasn't ready to be a mother. I wasn't ready to have a child. I'm absolutely devastated. I'm not a mother and I don't have a child. Well, that makes no sense. How can you feel both of those things? I don't know. They both sit, one sits on this side of my brain and one sits on this side of the brain, and they fight with each other. And it took me a really long time to understand how to deal with that. I don't know how to talk about this. How do I make this make sense? And I think in terms of, miscarriages, sometimes they don't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. And I think a lot of women go through that. I think it's something like 1 in 3 women experience miscarriage. So, and some women multiple, and some women who've never had one, like myself, when I first got pregnant, it's like this, you have this sort of, you don't know that that's a possibility, right? So it's like, oh, it can be really exciting. And I think a lot of women, when they get pregnant for the first time, feel excited and optimistic and hopeful. And oh my God, I'm going to have a child right away. So the blow of a miscarriage is so devastating. Wait a minute, what? What happened? I thought I was having a child. Everyone has a baby. How do people have babies? Like, this is crazy. How is this happening? To be pregnant is such a complicated thing. It's so wild, the fact that we can even get pregnant, and I think it really helped me feel less alone, knowing that it was something that was quite common, and that a lot of women do go through it. And but then, something that I felt that was difficult to hear in the very beginning. That being said, when I did very first lose my pregnancy, it was like, well, don't worry, this happens to a lot of people. You're not alone. It was like, I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear this happens all the time. Like, I was so upset. I was like, what do you mean? So I shouldn't feel upset that this happened to me because it happens to a lot of people. So I'm trying to articulate, and it's a very difficult thing to articulate specifically because I think it is very intricate, and it can be very difficult and complicated to speak about something like that. So because there's so many powerful, really, strong emotions that are happening in your physical body and in your emotional self as well. So I was always torn with, they're trying to help me by saying this, but it didn't help me to hear that. So if I'm saying that now, 3 years later, I do have perspective, and it did eventually become helpful to hear I'm not alone. 1 in 3 women have miscarriages. This happens to people. It's going to be okay. If someone's listening and they're not ready to hear that, I feel that. I've been there. Like, no, this sucks. It sucks that 1 in 3 women go through it. It sucks that it's something that we have to deal with. Sometimes you need to hear that. you know? So I've been in a place and I've been in positions where I needed to feel both. Like, I'm mad, I'm confused. Why is this happening to me? Why is my body doing this? I felt a sense of failure. Felt a sense of betrayal of my own body, of my own self. I felt like, and I wanted to feel those things. I didn't want to hear, oh, well, it happens to 1 in 3 women. I'm like, oh, I'm mad at myself. Like, it's okay. It's okay to be mad at yourself. You don't have to get over it right away and accept that it happens to 1 in 3 women. So wherever you're at in, you know, your journey of dealing with these emotions and processing, you know, I've felt those things. I've been angry. I've felt confused. I felt relief. I felt pain, and none of it made any sense. I was like, what? How do I deal with this? And again, you know, it goes back to sort of something similar. And when I lost Tate, I just sort of started talking to people. I spoke to one of my best friends in the whole world, and with the day it happened, I just sobbed to her, and she held me, you know? And, you know, she experienced this loss as well, not shortly after me. And I think that when I knew she was going through what I had been through, and she held me and I held her, and we were talking about it with each other, I think that's when I got to a place when I was starting ready to hear, this happens to 1 in 3 women. And then I wanted to learn about it more and understand the technical reasons why this happens. And, you know, it's not my fault. My body didn't fail me. You know, it wasn't a viable pregnancy. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't meant to happen. I'll never really know why it happened. It could be a multitude of things. I got pregnant on an IUD, you know, that's probably number one reason why it didn't come to fruition. So, you know, I did have some things to ground me in my grief of, okay, well, this happened because of this reason. Some women don't get that answer and they don't know why. And maybe it happens to them a lot later in their pregnancies. And there's so many different levels and variations of what it means to have a miscarriage, and so many different variables and versions of what a miscarriage looks like and what a miscarriage feels like to those people. All I can say is my own personal experience and all the things I was feeling during that time, and know that, you know, 3 years later, I have so much more perspective, and I've given myself so much time to heal from that. And it no longer feels like an open, gaping wound. It feels like a scar. It's definitely still with me. There's a mark there. It happened to me. It's more of a, you know, another mark on my spirit maybe, but I have perspective from it. I have healing from it. I really feel like I gave myself a lot of time to feel everything I know I needed to feel for myself. And I think it's important for other women to hear from others that it's something that we go through. And I didn't know if I would ever publicly talk about it, but I lost Tate, and I'm talking about grief, and he was such a huge part of my journey and my life, and he helped me deal with grief, and he's been a huge part of, you know, my mental health and being there for me. And I think there's something there with, you know, having that connection to an animal and mental health and what they can do for our mental health. I mean, there's therapy dogs for a reason, and horse therapy, and there's a reason why people connect to animals so strongly, and there's something there, and there's something that's healing and being around them, you know. And he was such a huge part of that healing, and in losing him, it did hurt me in that area. That previous injury in my spirit that I had from the miscarriage, it was someone that was with me so closely and so deeply for something so difficult is no longer here. I can no longer hold him and, you know, feel comforted from the wave of emotions that maybe come back from having the miscarriage. So, you know, it's all connected, and, you know, sometimes it can be painful and it can be hurtful, and even though it's a it is a scar on me now, and it's what I feel healed, and I feel optimistic, and I've grown a lot from it. And, I do feel like I've kind of come out on the other side of going through that. It's still a tender spot, you know what I mean? It's like if it's poked, it kind of hurts. It's like, oof, ow, that was, oof, that's from that, I've never broken a bone, crazy enough as it is. So I can imagine it's maybe similar to if you break a bone in your body, how it still hurts maybe later in life, and you feel aches and pains and all of these things. So it's an injury that feel like my spirit's endured, and it's still there, but I've really worked through it and worked through healing. And I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of if you're going through that. It takes time, and who knows, maybe now I think I'm healed, and I'm maybe fully not. I don't know. I feel confident and comfortable enough to speak about it. So maybe that's a layer and a step towards healing. Maybe we're never fully done healing and growing from things. I mean, we're never done growing. We grow forever and ever and ever until the day we die. So it might evolve and it might change going forward, and it might continue and shift, and I could maybe look back on where I'm at today and think I still had some work to do and I wasn't aware of it yet. So we'll see where it goes, but kind of where I'm at now is this is the headspace that I'm in. I feel comfortable and confident enough to sort of talk about it and talk about what happened and share it, and hope that others can maybe connect with it and feel not alone. I know it can feel isolating, especially if there's no one in your life that's been through it and you don't feel like you have somebody to connect to. So hopefully it just helps. And I feel like that's kind of why I wanted to share that, was just because, the many layers of grief, and in my loss, I've felt loss before, and I lost someone that went through that loss with me. So I kind of just wanted to touch on both of those things, just because I know it's something that a lot of people go through, losing a pet, losing a loved one, and then obviously, losing a pregnancy and going through a miscarriage. And so.
Thank you for the courage and bravery to share that with us here today for the first time publicly, beyond friends and family. And when I was listening to you, Taylor, I was just thinking, like, I appreciate just the level of complexity and layers that you're willing to kind of look at this from, whether it's personally, others, everyone. I mean, I was saying to you that I've had multiple friends in the last 2 to 3 years who've all experienced a miscarriage, and I talk to them and I'll hear from them, and I see so much just stress, overwhelm, pressure, self-degradation, like, just negative self-talk. Like it's one of the hardest things to go through, even if everyone goes through it, as you say, or not everyone, but so many people go through it, it doesn't make it any easier. And often, actually, like you said, it makes you so lonely that you don't want to talk to anyone about it.
Yeah.
And it's not comforting to know other people have gone through it. And I wonder, in that lonely phase, like, what was it that did help you? And even when your friend went through it, what allowed you to be there for each other in a way that was comforting and helpful, rather than felt uncomfortable and unhealthy?
I needed to be alone. I needed to feel it. I needed to sit in it. I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want people want to be there for you. And that's really special and that's really helpful. But I didn't want people to be there for me yet. I wasn't ready for people to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Or, because people don't know what to say sometimes when it comes to grief or loss. Sometimes I don't know what to say either. I have no idea on how to react to some things still, having experienced my own version of grief. How do you be there for somebody? It's a difficult thing. I mean, I didn't know I didn't know what I needed from people. I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to be alone. I didn't want anyone to know because I didn't want people to talk to me about it or say things to me because I just wasn't ready to hear it yet. And the way that I think I told people that were really, really close to me, really, my husband obviously knew because it happened to him too. And my 2 best friends knew, and the way that I feel like they were there for me because they didn't know what to say, they didn't say anything. They were there for me physically. They held me, they let me cry. I just sat there and I cried and said nothing. And they just held my hand and were like, just sat there with me and like let me cry. They didn't ask me questions. They didn't ask me how I felt. They didn't ask. They didn't say anything to me. Like, they didn't say everything happens for a reason. Don't worry. Like, you'll feel one day. Da da da. They didn't go into that. I think because they know me so well, they probably knew that I didn't want to hear that yet. They just were there and they listened when I was ready to talk. And then because I wasn't ready, they just let me emote and they just let me cry. And they cried and I could tell because I was hurt, they were hurt. You know, my when I finally got to my husband and we were together, he just held me. We both cried and he just held me. And, you know, I held him too, because I think that's another thing, is another layer on top of it is, even though it physically happened to me and emotionally was something that I experienced, it was an individual experience to myself. Emotionally, it's something that, it's a loss that happened to him as well. He also thought potentially he would be having a child. So we were both grieving something. We were both grieving the loss of this. We were both feeling this weird sense of relief at the same time, and then immediately guilty because we felt relief, and then immediately anger because we felt guilt. And you know what I mean? It's relentless, these emotions when it's fresh. You know, you feel literally every single one that's on the rainbow of all the colors. We felt all of them. And I think when it was the very beginning, I think for me it was just holding people holding me, you know, being in the space with me. They didn't have to say anything if they didn't know what to say, you know? And when we did sort of start talking about it, we first started saying, this sucks. I can't believe this is happening. You know, it was, if I was feeling angry, then they would be angry with me. If I was sad, then they were sad with me. So it was they were amazing at being there for me in those ways. And, you know, I think it is difficult to know what to say and how to be there for someone. But I think following them and how they're reacting is also really good. Like taking the cue from how they're responding is a good way to respond back to someone. And, you know, checking in, you know, my friends that knew checked in with me. How are you feeling today? You know, and then if I didn't want to talk about it, they were like, okay, let me know when you are ready, you know?
Yeah, we're here.
So just, you know, they were checking in, you know, making sure. And then, you know, my best friend, she experienced this as well. She continues to check in with me, you know? This is 3 years later and we still talk about it. Oh my gosh, like, can you believe it? You would have a 3-year-old. I'm like, I know. And it's just, we get to have these moments together of, we would both have a 3-year-old right now. And we think about that and we deal with that and we grieve that and we grieve the loss of that potential and that direction in life, you know, that thread that didn't happen in this path. So female friendships are incredible and they're beautiful. And I think it's really important for women to have women in their life that they can go to and they can talk to about these things, because we can relate to each other in other ways that I think, you know, I couldn't get from my husband. And being able to go to her was so special and really helpful. So I think also have patience with yourself. And if you know someone who's going through that, have patience with them, because it's a roller coaster. And, you know, she was my friend, she was going through this too. And I was feeling emotions and I was feeling heartbroken because she was heartbroken. So I was feeling emotions as well. And I just have to be patient because it's happening to her. So at her pace, at her time, when she's ready, when she wants to hear, when she wants to talk about it, we can. And we both shared that understanding with each other.
Something powerful, really powerful that you said was, I wasn't ready for someone to be there for me yet. And I think that's such a really remarkable insight. As I was listening to you, I was thinking, often when we see people who are struggling, because their struggle causes us discomfort, we want to solve it for them. And so if I'm speaking to a friend who's like, oh, you know, my friend's going through this or my partner's going through this and they're spiraling, and we're so uncomfortable with their discomfort that we want to fix it to relieve our own discomfort, not realizing that that person may need to feel and experience all of it.
Yeah.
And to let it all out in their own way. And I love what you just said of, I just wasn't ready for someone to be there for me yet. And I think that's a great note for all of us to ask ourselves, like, am I ready for someone to be there for me yet? And if I'm trying to help someone, are they truly ready for me to be there for them?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've seen and you mentioned as well when we were talking, this idea about how there's so much pressure also on the couple. So you're both individually dealing with loss and grief, but then there's like a dynamic that you go through with each other.
Yeah.
Because you're both at different spaces of healing. You're both at different timelines. The waves come differently. It's affected both of you, but then you're both trying to be there for each other. Like, it's quite a unique it's quite a unique situation. Walk us through how you navigated that overwhelming pressure and feeling together as well. And what did it take to reconnect? And I mean, I don't even think it's finding normalcy. It's like evolving, but
Yeah,
what does that look like?
I mean, my husband is so kind. He's very gentle. He's very understanding. He knows I'm an emotional person. He knows I feel things deeply, heavily, and he knows that I was distraught. You know, he could see that I'm even feeling it now. You know, just all these different things all at the same time, and he's a supportive partner to me. And I think what was really helpful for us was, you know, I think he had a really great understanding, and he was so wonderful during those times for me. I think for him, he understood, okay, this is something that he's like, okay, I'm feeling. I also can't speak for him, obviously, because these are his feelings and his journey as well. So as I'm saying this, it's more just like collectively what you know we both went through. It was the shared experience that I'm touching on, and things that he did say and express to me. So, you know, I felt that he had a really great understanding of, you know, the equal amount of heartbreak, of loss. You know, he was feeling that too, and we had a shared experience in that. And I think he also had a really great understanding of, this is physically happening to her as well as it is emotionally happening to her. He knew it would take me longer to gain perspective, to start my healing process, to, you know, be able to adjust or, you know, process my emotions, just because I think, he said to me, whatever I feel like I'm feeling, I know you're feeling it tenfolds. I know what you're going through is a physical reaction in your body of change, and then the change of becoming pregnant, the change of losing that pregnancy, the emotional change from all of those things. So for us, it was really helpful that he was super understanding, and he's really great at navigating emotion as well. And I think it was helpful for me when he talked about it with me, when he would say things like, today is the day it happened, and he's reminding me, and he's the one talking about it. It makes me feel less alone, that he still remembers it, that he still carries it with him. Because sometimes, we just because we've had some time and we've had some distance, I know I carry this with me forever. I know I will, because this happened to me in more ways than one. And I worry sometimes, or I did that, well, maybe he won't feel that way. Like maybe he'll move on faster. Maybe he'll forget about it. Maybe all these things. And then you feel sad and, different emotions around that. And like, I know that can be really complicated in a dynamic of loss, of they're moving on. Oh, they're forgetting about this. They're not talking about this anymore. So for me, what was really helpful is because I know that he went through this too. I love that he checks in with me. I love that he talks about it with me. I love that he also says things like, can you believe we would maybe have had a 3-year-old? Oh my God, you think about that too? It made me feel so seen, like so heard, and that he sees me all the time. He sees when we've been married for almost a year now, so he sees when people make comments like, oh, when are you guys gonna have kids, or are you thinking about having kids? And people ask, it's a harmless question, and I understand why people ask it, and it's I'm not angry that people ask that question. I think it's part of society. People want to talk about it. People are excited about starting families. If we want to start a family, which we do, and we've spoken with our friends that we would want to have a family one day. So I understand why they're asking us those questions, but not everybody knows that I went through this. And at that time, I mean, now maybe everybody will know I went through this, but I wasn't ready for everybody to know that I was going through this. And I had to deal with those questions internally. And it was painful to hear those questions. People would make comments because a lot of my friends had babies during COVID, and everyone was like, oh, everyone had all these babies, during COVID, and everyone was getting pregnant. And I did. And I was pregnant and I didn't have a baby. So I would hear comments like that. I would hear things like that. Oh, also people assume that maybe I have had a kid and they just don't know yet. Oh, did you have a kid? Were you one of those girls during COVID that had a kid? And I'm like, oh God, I know what you mean when you're saying that, but you have no idea. No, I'm not. I guess I'm not. So he would sort of see me and like see that I was dealing with that internally and trying to process socializing and, navigating these comments, because it's nobody's fault that they're asking it, it's just normal. It's just life, right? So I do have to grow from this. I have to be able to handle this. I have to be able to talk about this again. I do have to be able to be okay. And I wasn't always okay. And I think he saw that I wasn't always okay. And I could tell that he was hurt when I was hurt. I could tell that he was feeling what I was feeling, and I also shared it with him too, because people can't read your mind. This is my partner. This is my life partner. This is the person that I decided that I want to spend life with and do life with. So I have to do life with them, right? So I have to make a point to share, today I'm feeling extra bad because it's the week of my miscarriage. It's the anniversary week. I'm not going to feel good this week. I say that, I express that. He cannot read my mind. He has no idea what I'm feeling unless I'm saying it. So, it's a two-way street that I share with him. and that he sees me and he understands me. So, and he does. He's really great at understanding how I emote, you know, my tells, my, you know, physical things that maybe I do where he's like, she's nervous, she's upset. I could tell she's holding back tears right now. He helps remove me from said situation, you know, so learning each other and sharing with each other. And he knows those things, and he's been able to learn those things because I've shared them with him and I've shown him and told him, and vice versa. He's shared with me and told me and shown me how I can care and love and be there for him. So I think just for a couple in this scenario, however you're dealing with the loss of a pregnancy or a child, because I know people conceive in many different ways. And there's a lot of stress in starting a family on multiple different types of relationships and partners and spouses, and how you're going about it and how you're dealing with it and what you're going through and you know, what you're doing with each other, and how your journey with that is unique to you, to your both of your situations, and the way that you guys communicate with each other is important, and learning each other and asking for something is there's nothing wrong with asking for something, and then they're able to adjust and do that for you. So I feel like that's something that I've learned as well, is being open and making sure I'm sharing. And you know, he's really great at just innately, because we've known each other and we love each other. He's good at, you know, knowing and figuring out those little things that I do for himself and just seeing me. But also I've shared a lot with him, and he listens and he adapts and he changes for those things for me and does those things for me. So I think that communication is probably the number one most important thing, and also the most difficult thing. I know communicating is so difficult. How do you be vulnerable? How do you share these things? Am I ready to talk about this? Do I want to say this? And you know, I don't know. I think just say it and ask for it and communicate it, because again, you know, they may have no idea that that's even going on in your head, and they have something completely different going on in their head.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I appreciate you sharing that, because I think a lot of people are both dealing with the grief, and then they're dealing with the loss of the relationship they had and the one they thought they were going to have when they had a child together as well. And so communication's at the core and the heart of all of that, because it's so multi-layered and so complex. Taylor, as I was listening to you, and I asked this question very sensitively, and I ask it in order to hopefully help people who are listening as well, like how do you refine the confidence to want to think about a family again and try again? Because I ask it very sincerely and sensitively, thinking about people listening who are like, I don't think I can ever try again because it was so painful. And that's generally a human reaction to pain. If it was so painful, I can't go there again. Yet I have this desire to have a family. Like how for you do you know when you're ready to think about it again, even, or open up to the idea?
I know I want one. I don't think I'm there yet. I don't know actually if I've confronted that for myself. You know, I don't think I've gone there where one day I'm going to be trying to have a family, and you know, maybe that stick is going to say pregnant. Is it going to bring back all these emotions, and how am I going to deal with that again? Oh, gosh, I have no idea, because you know, I'm not there yet. I'm still not ready for a child, and I'm not ready to think about it, and I'm not ready to start having a family, and I don't know when that is. And you know, a lot of people who've had children are like, you'll never know, the timing's never right, all this stuff, and everyone's journey is different, and that I have no plan. I have no timeline of when I'm going to start a family, when I'm going to do that, how I'm going to do it. I don't know. And I also have no idea what I'm about to confront when I start trying again. You know, is it going to be really easy? Is it going to be fine? Did this scenario happen to me simply because of the IUD, or will I experience this again? Because, you know, a pregnancy is a new organism in your body. It's like I don't know, I think of it maybe as almost like a bacteria that's like, it's introducing like a new thing inside of your body. And a miscarriage is a rejection of that. Your body being like, that shouldn't be here. What is this? This is new. And sometimes it takes time to adjust. Your body has to be like, oh, that's what that is. So maybe it takes a couple tries, and that's why your body's doing that. I don't know why my body did that. Probably the IUD, most likely. If doctors are listening, they'll probably be like, oh, it's the IUD. That's why. I was like, okay, fine. That's why. But I guess I'll sort of, maybe I'll be able to speak on that more when I'm in the headspace of actively trying, or if and when I do have a child, like to be able to touch on that again. But I think I'm nervous. I do have fears about getting to that stage in my life, and I'm worried about what I'm going to start feeling when I am pregnant again. I want to enjoy the process. I want to be, excited. I want to feel all of those things. But unfortunately, because of what I went through, I know that in the beginning I won't. I'll feel fear. I'm going to be afraid. I know I'm going to be scared. I know I'm going to have like anxiety about it until who knows when, maybe the entire pregnancy. I don't know. But I know I've been through this before. I know I can handle this. I'm stronger because of this. If it happens to me again, I'm gonna be okay. Look at how far I've come. Look at how I handled this, like what we went through. Like I have confidence in that at least, but I also have no idea what that is gonna look like for me until I start doing that, or until it happens. So I would say for me, how I can rationalize it is I'm stronger because of this. I've been through this thing, and I've dealt with something that was really difficult for me personally to go through, and I came out the other side. Whether or not I'm fully done yet, we don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there. But right now, all I can say is I feel confident that I know I'm gonna be okay no matter what. I'm gonna be okay. I can get through anything. I can do this. Like, I have a great support in my husband, in my family, in my friends. They were all there for me. They showed their love and support. I was there for me. I was there for myself. I showed up, so I know I can show up for myself. I know I can be there. I know I can pick myself back up again and start walking and make those steps towards healing again. So we're resilient as people, as humans, and having faith in our resilience and in our strength, and in our ability to find healing and find growth. I think we forget and we doubt ourselves sometimes that we can do that. We can get through that.
Thank you for such an honest answer. I feel like a lot of people will be able to resonate and connect with that. This idea of, I don't know, I'll see when I get there. I don't even know if I'm ready to answer that question. And I think people listening to that will feel a sense of relief, because I think that naturally, again, like you said, when you go through it, you have to get into tactical mode of how do we make sure it's done and clean and everything's okay. And then we get into, okay, how do I start? And you almost don't give yourself that space. So thank you so much for giving everyone space by even having that answer. It's really beautiful and powerful to hear. Taylor, you've been so gracious and kind with your time today, with your energy, with your soul. Like, I really feel like you've let us in, which is so kind. I really hope you feel we've honored Tate and given a chance for you to express your love for Tate, and also honored your experiences. And, I feel like with your whole career and everything, it's almost like I find that, when you've been modeling from such a young age and you've been in the public eye, like, so much of your career becomes about your looks, your age, those things become big. And as you transform and evolve as a human too, as you're starting, Tate and Taylor, and you're starting a company, or you've started a company that's doing all this incredible purposeful work, and you built a content platform, and a platform where people can find amazing products, amazing services, amazing partnerships for their pets and their dogs and everything else. Like, walk us through how you see that evolution for yourself of coming from an industry in a space that is defined by these external things of looks and age and fitness and everything, and then finding your path through that now.
Yeah, I think They really play such a big role with each other. I think why I even wanted to start Tate and Taylor and start a business and be in the pet space. Obviously, I have a huge passion for animals and dogs. Like, this is so much more to me than just a company. I'm doing this because this is absolutely 100% like the thing I love most in the world is my dog Tate and my dog Salem I have now too. And they're just so incredible and amazing, and they've changed my life in so many ways, and even Salem now has impacted my life in so many different ways than Tate did, and I'm so excited about the journey and the life that I'm going to live with him and the things he's about to teach me and show me. And I don't think I would even be able to know how to do that and build something with intention and purpose if I hadn't had my career before. I started modeling when I was 14. I don't have a traditional education in that sense, but I've learned so much from my job and from working at a young age and traveling the world and having so many experiences. I feel like I learned by doing, and by being able to see how things work, and people producing fashion collections and watching them make the clothes on me, to walking in the fashion show and seeing how things are done is really interesting, and being a part of a photo shoot and all the different areas, and everyone has a different job, and seeing how it all comes together and how everybody works and all the puzzle pieces kind of like, as I'm sure it's just like, it's interesting. And there's a lot of different layers to what goes into something like a photo shoot, or a campaign, or a video, or a movie, or a fashion show. And it was really fun and exciting for me to witness and see those things and do those things. And I think modeling has been it is a lot about it is about physically what I look like 100%. Like, I'm a model because of how I look. I know that. So it's an interesting thing to go from, I'm here because of how I look, but also I feel like after a certain extent, I'm still here because of who I am, and I'm still here, and people continue hopefully to work with me because we have fun together and we build relationships and they get to know me, and it becomes more than just this, surface transaction of she looks a certain way, she fits the bill physically of what we're looking for, so we're going to book her. I think after 14 years, you start knowing people and establishing relationships and becoming friends with people in the industry, and then people want to work with you because they like you, they like hanging out with you. It's like a lot of industries, you know what I mean? The more you are in it, the more you do it, the more friends you make, the more connections you feel like you have with people, and the less it becomes about how you look, and it becomes a lot about who you are actually. Like, my interpretation of my career in modeling, I feel like it's been with people that I enjoy working with, and I get to work with them again and again and again, and I love that. I love that I now know so many people in the industry, and every time I get a call sheet, not every time, but I get these call sheets and I see who's going to be on set, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't seen this person in, however many years, and I'm so excited to work with them again and do that. So to me, it's maybe it starts off that way, and modeling is about the way that I look and how I physically am, but then I think it becomes a lot deeper than that. So, people establishing those connections with me as like taught me how to grow and change, and just they've taught me so much about life and different backgrounds and different people and different things. So, I learned so much from it, and I've grown so much from it. And, wanting to start my own business, I feel like I'm able to do that because of everything that I've done in my modeling career. And I really I see them so much a part of each other. And I want to be in the pet space and have this business because it's something that I also love to do. Like, I love my job, I love modeling, and I really believe in pursuing things that you love to do. And, maybe I won't be a model forever. I have no idea, because it's not a very consistent lifestyle as much as I love it. You never know. I just got a text message today that I'm going to Paris on Thursday. So, maybe when I do start trying to have a family, and if I have a family and my family is growing and growing and growing, or, I have all these hopes and dreams to have a big family, it'll be more difficult to do my modeling career to the extent that I'm doing it now. And I also love dogs, and I love my dog, and I love, animals, and I love that people love their animals. And I wanted to create something that I wish existed with my life and my journey and path with Tate. And I'm creating something that I really want and need with Salem, my new dog now that I rescued. And because we're going through so many different things, and I'm so excited to, be able to build on the experience I've had from modeling and apply it to what I'm doing now with Tate and Taylor, and build something with purpose, build something with, meaning, something that I'm passionate about doing, something that I love. It's my lifestyle. It's, I'm that crazy dog lady that every time I see a dog on the street, I'm like, hello, how are you? Nice to meet you. What's your name? I love dogs, and I love animals in general too. So I really think that dogs are connectors, and I've met a lot of people and had so many amazing, interesting conversations because of our dogs. If you're out walking your dog and people stop you, oh my God, what kind of dog is that? Oh my God, he's so beautiful. Are they a boy or are they a girl? What's their name? And the next thing you know, you're having a full-blown conversation with a complete and total stranger. But I feel like I'm in a safe space, It's really interesting. And I started out really shy and kind of an introverted person. Having Tate, everybody loved him. People were like, oh my God, that's the cutest dog I've ever seen. And I had to open up. I had to have conversations with people, and he helped me do that. And he helped me connect with people. And, someone that works with me on Tate and Taylor, I met through Tate in my building, because we had like a doggy play date group chat in the building, and she invited us, and, our dogs were playing and we connected, and now she's helping me, build Tate and Taylor. So I love dogs. I think that they're just amazing, and they're connectors, and it's something that I love so much and find so much joy in. And I hope that people receive that and see that, and are excited about it, because, I'm really passionate about how I take care of my dog and the love I want to give him. I want to give him the best life possible, because they're not with us forever, as, I know very well. And I want to cherish every single second I possibly can with them. And I know so many pet people and people who have pets want that as well. And, there's definitely a lack of community, I think, in the pet industry. There is community, but there's not like a place. I feel like there wasn't a place to go for information, to connect to other people. And I really hope to build that and grow Tate and Taylor into something where people feel like, this is happening to me and I don't know what to do. Maybe we can help you figure that out. So that's sort of the intention in doing what we're doing. We have the online store. We're like curating products. We're looking for amazing founders and brands and people who are doing innovative things in the pet space, with whether that's treats that are with really great quality. We have women-owned businesses. I love the idea of supporting women and young, cool entrepreneurs doing really interesting things, and maybe helping do that together and giving them a space and a platform to showcase and talk about their product and why it's great and why it's different, and help them sort of just like share what they're doing with the world, because there's so many passionate entrepreneurs out there who are starting these companies in the pet space, and they're so dedicated, and they have just as much passion and love as I do for their dogs, and they've gone through something completely different than maybe I've gone through with Tate, so it's really interesting to be able to speak with businesses and speak with founders about why they started their company, what their goal and what their mission and their drive is, why they're doing what they're doing, challenges they've faced as women in the industry, as just being an entrepreneur in general. There's so many things that we want to touch on in that space, that I think there's just, I felt like it wasn't there when I was going through that with Tate, and I really want to create that for people and bring people together and have it be fun and, really easy and exciting, to care and like find cool products and great and things that work that we like for our pets. So yeah.
That's a really powerful
hard stop. Oh,
no,
God.
It's a really powerful intention and powerful mission, and it's so clear and evident, and I feel like you're going to revolutionize the pet space. It's It's obvious that your drive and passion is true. And a couple of lessons I took away just listening to you. One was this idea, I think we live in a world where when we discover something we're passionate about, we like to discount our past experience and make it seem like, oh, now I've found it. Whatever I did before was kind of like, it was there, but now I found it. And what I love hearing about from you, and I definitely resonate with what you said, it's like actually every stage of your career unlocks the opportunity, the ability, the ideas, the resources, the connectivity to do the next thing. And I think if anyone out there is right now, you're listening and you're going, I hate my job, I hate where I am, I don't like what I'm doing, I promise you there's some skill or some lesson or some person or some contact that you met through that could help you build the next part of yourself. And overall, your business and your venture and this direction you've gone in is truly a journey of pain to purpose, of passion to purpose, of using your platform for a purpose. And I think that it's such a beautiful example that so many of us, no matter what our pains are, what our stresses are, what our challenges are, that we can transform them into an offering to help other people who are going through the same thing.
Building a brand with intention, I think, and with a purpose to give back and help, I think is really important, and something that, especially in the pet space, I felt was lacking, because there's so many areas I would love to tap into out, just beyond the cancer funding and maybe even cancer research, and getting into that and understanding why and how, and, and as well as rescue. We work with rescue organizations, and my dog Salem is a rescue, and that's an experience that he's been teaching me about, and something that I want to make a change and make an impact in. I think for me with Tate and Taylor, the most important thing about this business is using it to make an impact and do good things with it, and use it to help people and help others and help dogs, help people who have dogs, or hopefully animals, pets in general. We'll get there one day. If you have an iguana, great. Maybe we'll be able to help you with that. I don't know. Who knows where it's going to go? That's what's so exciting. It's so new and it's so fresh. And right now we're dogs right now. So I'm obviously talking about dogs because that's what we are doing currently. I do have the hope and the optimism and the intention to want to do as much as I possibly can. But I'm going to focus on one thing, and then we can start growing from there and building on top of that. So in the pet space, there's just so much that I want to do and so much I want to accomplish. And I want to be able to build something that helps, most importantly, and that does give back, and that does have a drive and does have a cause, because there is a drive and there is a cause and there is a reason behind everything that I'm doing. And it's Tate. It's dedicated to him. It's dedicated to everything he taught me, the love I know he has for me, the love I have for him. And it's for everyone who's ever felt that way about a dog or a pet in their life. It's a dedication to that. It's a dedication to that feeling and knowing you want to take care of something, you love something so deeply. So do we. We know that feeling. We understand that. And we want to make something and build something with you that is impactful and meaningful and helpful and connective. And hopefully we can, build a great community and have incredible resources for people. So, this is just the beginning of our journey with it. And I'm really, really excited about it. So,
well, congratulations, Taylor. And we end every episode of On Purpose with a fast five, which have to be answered in one word to one sentence maximum.
I talk a lot.
Before we do
you
that,
might have noticed from that.
Yeah. So, Taylor Hill, these are your final five. Question one is, what is the best advice you've ever heard or received?
Best advice is do what you love and the rest will come. My dad told me that.
Great answer. All right. Question number two, what is the worst advice you've ever heard or received?
Maybe if you ignore it, it'll go away or something.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's absolutely not true.
Good answer. Question number three. What's the first thing you do every morning and the last thing you do every night?
Well, I'm really not a morning person. So first thing in the morning, I'm like, oh, why am I awake? What's that alarm? What's happening? I'm very disoriented first thing in the morning. And I think drink coffee. I need to have a cup of coffee. I'm not a morning person. And then at night, I love snuggling with my dog, kissing Salem, and in the past, kissing Tate, having our goodnight cuddles. If I'm at home with my husband, this is more than one sentence. I've already failed. Saying goodnight and having time, our connection with him.
Yeah. Question number 4: what's something you learned lately? A skill that you picked up, a lesson that you learned recently?
Not that recent, but lately I've been learning how to cook and doing it better.
Cool.
Cooking more and being better at it. But that's taken time.
Nice. It does take time. 5th and final question. If you could create one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would it be?
Always grow, always change, be willing to grow and change. I don't know how to apply that as a law, but I think growth is so important, and acknowledging past mistakes and growing and changing from them is really important, something I'm still learning and trying to do. But I think if we can all work on that and do that, maybe the world could be a better place.
Absolutely. Well said. Taylor Hill, everyone. Taylor, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your soul, your beautiful experiences. Thank you for being so open and honest with our community and everyone who's been listening and watching. I know that this will have affected you. I know you have friends and family who have been through some of these experiences that Taylor shared with us. Please pass this episode on to them. Maybe even sit and listen to it with them and hold them through it. I would love for you to use this episode as a way of having some of those uncomfortable, difficult conversations. And of course, check out Tate and Taylor. I can't wait for you to give your dogs all the love that they deserve. And I want to say a big thank you again to Taylor for her presence, love, and energy. So
thank you very much.
Taylor.
I'm happy to have been here. Thank you.
If you love this episode, you will also love my interview with Kendall Jenner on setting boundaries to increase happiness and healing your inner child.
You could be reading something that someone is saying about you and being like, that is so unfair because that's not who I am. And that really gets to me sometimes. But then looking at myself in the mirror and being like, but I know who I am. Why does anything else matter?